back at it today, athlete, builder, and Chris, the mad scientist Duffin. Wasn't sure where to go with this today because there's so many things to say, and I don't want to just pigeonhole or label him into one thing. But other than episode 51 with Kyle Maynard, this is one of the two most resilient people I've ever come across. And if you know me or have been around me at all, you know I don't really say things unless I don't mean so. If I think or what I've researched about Chris, I write down survivor and thriver, relentless incarnate, protector and provider of his family at a young age, thought leader. So all those statements alone puts him at a high level. Then you get into elite lifter, all-time world record holder, elite coach and mentor, rebuilder of multiple companies within multiple industries. That's hard. Inventor of strength equipment, just overall inventor and scientist. So I hate to label him with just one thing because he's not just one thing, but he's all those things and more. So we're going to talk today about his life a little bit and how he's gotten to where he is, because you are the sum of all your experiences. And then we're going to get into something really important to us because, as you know, with Athlete Builder, there's 6 components, 3 for the head and 3 for the body. And mindset leads the head, and training's one of the big pillars in the body. So we're going to talk about his app called LiftLab, and it's an excellent tool for anyone that's lifting, moving weight, on how to do it better, how to be more efficient, how to do it faster, how to be stronger, more powerful, how to maximize and optimize your results. So we're going to learn a little bit more about Chris and his mindset, which number 1 in the head, and then training in the body with his app. And we're going to put all that together for this episode. It's the first time that we've done a product and service assessment, and it's important because we don't do that lightly. And this product and service is cutting edge, it's new, and it's effective. So we're looking forward to getting into that. So, Chris, thanks for being on the show today. Really looking forward to getting into this conversation with you. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a good Saturday morning conversation, Jim.
So if you don't know Chris and where he's at, he's on the West Coast, and I've only been there once, Washington State Olympic National Park, and he's out in Oregon and has built his life out there. And if you know anything about him or don't, when you first notice, like on the cover of his book or on his videos, here's the book right here, The Eagle and the Dragon. He has this eagle and dragon wrapped around his body, and it's metaphoric for who he is in his life. And he talks about in the book, the eagle part, that's the realization of potential, as he wrote. Only things holding us back is ourselves. And then the dragon, that's the reinvention, how the Ouroboros dragon consumes itself and reinvents itself. So when I talk about reinventing or realizing your potential, I wrote down in your intro, survivor and thriver. I don't say that lightly. I'm talking about living outside, age 6, killing and skinning rattlesnakes for food, living in the real-time Murder Mountain documentary, if you will. And Chris talks about that, and he's very candid and open about all these instances. Chris, can you discuss or talk more about how we can always control ourselves even amidst that chaos at a young age?
Yeah, so just like the title of the book and the tattoo, like I had this giant tattoo started around 20 years of age on my body, a big giant eagle across my back and one across my stomach. And it represented to me that you can fly to whatever heights you want in life. Realization of your true potential. The only thing holding you back is yourself. And I had that realization from the life that I grew up in, which was, as you said, took place. There's literally a documentary about a documentary series called Murder Mountain. And I actually lived 50 miles deeper and more remote. And we grew up, intense, in the wilderness. My tent would get destroyed by a bear. We were surrounded. I dealt with murderers, a serial killer, human trafficking that affected my family as well, that one is still hard to talk about. And, if we had a home, sometimes it was, it was a home that didn't have doors. It was just a condemned building, no windows, bats flying around in it. And it's like, hey, we've got to walk, a mile down the road to get to the spring, fill up our jugs of water to have drinking water. During the summertime, it's, taking those jugs of water from the stream and setting them out on the rocks out in the sun all day so you could bathe. And yeah, it was an interesting life, but I learned a lot in the scope of that. So just, talking the rattlesnake story, for example, at 6 years old, I was taught how to, capture and handle live rattlesnakes. And I remember this, woke up one morning and me and my brother were out in the field playing. We were chasing lizards and doing the things that we did at that time to just entertain ourselves. There was obviously no technology, nothing. I mean, our beds were beams lashed up in the trees because there was rattlesnakes all around. There was a rattlesnake den. We were nowhere. This wasn't a camp, a campsite. This was literally, way out in the woods, and you have to hike and know a trail to get into that place. And that's where we lived at. And me and my brother were hiking and around, and I heard the rattle in a bush, and I knew exactly what to do because I was carrying the stick that I needed to be safe, which was this long stick with a little, taper at the end, a little V. I'm holding my fingers up for those listening to the podcast. Mm-hmm. And you get that rattlesnake to strike. You get it out there, you kind of tease that, and that snake strikes. And you got to be careful because they strike about 2 times the distance that you would think that they strike. And after it strikes, you put that over its head, right at the back of its neck, and then you pick up the snake, and you hold just right behind the jaws with your thumb and your index finger, and you hold that snake, and it'll sit there and it'll wrap around your arm. And I'm 6 years old. I'm holding this snake, right? And you can feel it's just that cold slither around your body, those scaly skins, that life moving, but it's like a cold life. It feels weird. And it's looking at you, and you look at those beady eyes and those fangs, and its only intention in the world at that moment is to kill you.
Yes.
Like that living being's desire right at that moment. Every ounce of its being is to kill you. And you've got fear coursing through your body. And what does that fear do to you? It can do a couple things. Right? One, it can make you lock up. It can make you not able to take action or do anything because fear is overpowering you. And we see people like that happen in life when they don't have the resiliency, they haven't built the tolerance to be able to work in that place of handling the fear, of handling the unknown, the handling those challenges, and they lock up in life, right? They just can't, something happens and they can't deal with it, right? And so that's just like stepping into a workout that you don't have the capacity to handle, and it just destroys you. Like you have to build resilience. And so I had the opportunity to build that a lot through my life. But at the same time, I also see all these like shirts that say, no fear, no fear. Well, if I just disregarded and lived at that moment of like no fear, I would be dead as well. So either of these outcomes, I'm dead. Like fear is a signal for a reason. It's a very, very important signal. And anybody that says they don't have fear, fucking bullshit.
Yep.
The only person you're lying to is yourself.
Yeah.
And it's that balance, right? So knowing how to respect the signal that fear is, but be able to control yourself and your actions and your responses in those moments is a critical lesson in life. And I could tell a number of lessons like that over the course, but I had a very unusual upbringing, and it gave me the opportunity to have a really distinct, different vision of life. And it's not that I had it harder or tougher or anything like that than anyone. I'm not saying that. I've squatted a lot of weight, right? Somebody will come up to me, hey, what's it like to squat 1,000 pounds? I'm like, well, what's your max? 400. Well, it's like that, right? So
right.
My experiences aren't worse than anybody else's. but what I have had is a breadth of experiences. And I think that's because it's going from there to, and we roll that whole scope through, living in an environment, then getting into, high school where I was having to excel. I was having to work all the time to support the family, engage a bunch. And I didn't realize actually how much until I went to college. And I put myself through college. I was a state level athlete in high school. And then I got a full ride academic scholarship to go to school. And I was doing a dual engineering degree, and things fell apart at home once I left. And that's when I realized how much of an impact I had from kind of a leadership impact at home. And my mother had a mental breakdown, disappeared. My sisters they left the home and they were living homeless. They were young teens. And so I ended up starting taking full custody of my three younger sisters while I was going through college. Bought a house, was working full time, and so I got started on my career early. And so then I ended up excelling in my career. And next thing you know, I'm a corporate executive, like doing turnarounds, getting hired to and so that scope of life that I've seen I think that gives me a lot of perspective. And I'll say that's probably outside of the norm. Not a lot of people, there's a lot of people that have suffered hardship. There's a lot of people that have excelled in life, but the scope that I've seen from truly a kid in the sticks growing up and then doing that. And then also, being in the, the sports performance world and working with nearly every professional and collegiate team out there. It's been an interesting life with a lot to learn over that.
Sure. In Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, he's a PhD psychologist, but he survived Auschwitz. And what he writes in there, a number of things about faith, but he says your last human freedom is your ability to choose your attitude and how you respond, right? And you talked about that despite living in that environment, you can still choose your attitude. You can still choose how you react. That's that extreme ownership that Jocko talks about. And you mentioned near-death experiences, but also you had death experiences with your best friend, other members of the family, suicides, and there's all this trauma with alcoholism, and then all those things together where you're taking care of your sisters who are avoiding sex trafficking. Then you talk about recovery, because as you go through these different highs and lows, there's still a time when your body and your nervous system, whether it's, like you said, in a workout or in life, you need to recover, reassess what's going on, put in your own after action report and say, hey man, like I need to calm down here a little bit. I need to rest a minute, take a deep breath before I take my next step forward. Talk about recovering in life and recovering in workouts and the parallels there.
Yeah, I've mapped that quite a bit. I use the exact same thing when I'm working with, a Fortune 500 executive or, a champion athlete. It's the same exact process as what we look like from a training standpoint. It's the same physiological map. And so I call it, it's easy to remember, call it the 6 Ps. And it looks like a square root symbol. All right. So you're starting on this little level ground of where you're at in life. And then you've got, you come up to the edge of the dip in the square root. And that can be a moment in your life when you're looking at going back to school or starting a job or starting a company, getting married, these changes, right? And I'm picking big ones. There's microcycles and macrocycles of all these moments. I mean, there's tiny ones from like, I've got a hard conversation with my brother-in-law or, a coworker type thing that are all micro moments. And every one of these is an opportunity to build resilience. But it starts with being on this precipice of this big plunge in front of you. And at the same time, you're looking and seeing at the other end, the height of that square root symbol, the peak, and that place that you want to be. And there's something in each of these processes. One, understanding where you're at is really empowering. And second, knowing how to control and manage each one of those. So let's say that precipice moment can also be a leadership moment in your life. It can be when I'm doing a turnaround in a business, right? I have to take that peak that I can see on the other end, and I have to be able to create that into a vision and just map that onto the wall of an organization and map into people's minds with my words, with explaining and all these conversations about where we're going, how everyone fits into that. But it could also be a storytelling moment for myself to get myself to take that step, because I need to convince myself, and it could be some mental trickery to do that, to get out of the norm, to get out of the complacency of like walking through the story of how that gain, that peak over there, is greater than the pain of that plunge, that step I'm going to take off of. And then the last one is, recognizing these moments, because the important ones, there's always something you can step into that's going to be challenging and too challenging. And you don't want to just constantly be stepping into every opportunity for pain and growth and resilience as you want. It needs to be strategic. And so recognizing, I call it the gut check. It's when you've got that twist in your gut that is a mixture of excitement and anxiety. It's both, right? You got it with these big moments in life, like moving out of your parents' house, going to school, a job change, seeing that hot number at a table over there at a bar that you want to approach, and your friends are like, "Hey, go over there," and you're like, "I don't know," and then it's like, asking the question, having kids, like every one of these.
Right.
You don't walk into that all full excitement. There's a mixture of but in each of these that I mentioned, there's big biological drivers, and they make people kind of that drives you through it. I mean, there's these innate drivers of human being. Now, the problem is, you see most people, once they get through those ones that are driven by biological drivers, they just stagnate. That's when it happens, right? You see it. They hit 35, and then next thing you know, they're on their deathbed. Like life just cruised by and nothing happened. And maybe something challenge did happen and they locked up and froze and couldn't handle it because they just never so life's going to come at you no matter what. So this is the value of talking about the precipice moments and that those choices of yourself to take that step and to be able to do so strategically, because no matter what, life is going to come at you and you're going to get pushed off of one of those if you don't take the choice of stepping off of it. And if you're young, you may not realize that just yet, but you don't always have control of that. So the next phase, so I've just articulated that precipice moment in a whole bunch of different ways. And you can use that gut check is really great for those microcycles, because you can also think about this as, how do I develop skills in my missing areas? How do I develop skills in communication, in conflict management, in just stepping into uncomfortable, being used to being uncomfortable, being used to walking into a conversation and not knowing how I'm going to handle it, being used to any number of public you just have to do it. And so there might be all these micro moments of I work with a lot of people developing on the leadership and management side. And there's a lot of conversations, hard conversations. You always try to come up with an excuse and put it off. And you got that twist in your gut around, God, I really want to get that resolved. Maybe it's not excitement, but it's like, I want it resolved, but the anxiety, and you don't do it. That is your signal to step into that right then. Because you got to get used to and comfortable where that just becomes, you're not going to have it. You're waiting for that perfect plan. How do I say it just right? How do I move through? You know what? You got to get used to being in that unknown place and walking through that. At the end of the day, from a leadership perspective, that is leadership, is being able to help people walk through the process of change and growth. So getting people to take that step is the essence of leadership. Now, once you've done that on a personal note, you're in this free fall. That's the plunge. You're diving off that first little, piece of that little square root signal. And that plunge is an opportunity where you've got these emotions running through you. You're not at the bottom. You're not at this place I call the pit yet, where you're just like, oh my God, this is this sucks and I'm working through it, and you're just slogging. This is the free fall, like, oh my God, what am I done? Where am I going? And you're just like this whirlwind of emotions and uncertainty, and just, it might be shame, it might be fear, it might be a whole lot of things. The value here is to learn more about yourself. And you do that by meditating into those emotions. Why do I feel those things that I feel? Why do I feel that? I just dive deeper. Don't turn away from it. Don't turn away from sadness, shame, anxiety, whatever it is you're experiencing. Go into it to understand what the driver, because that's going to actually help you better understand your values, because that's going to guide you in life as a whole. And I don't know if we'll have a chance on this podcast to dive into that, but it is a central piece with like creating your North Star and your guiding strategies and values in life, and how you then set goals that realize those values. So then you get to the bottom, and now you're at this moment of like, maybe you've got a new business, a new job, or whatever it is, and you're just, it's the pit. You're grinding. When am I getting out of this? And the trick here, and there's actually, since I came up with this framework, there's actually been some neuroscience that it was actually on, I think, the 𝗬𝗍𝗃𝗀𝗀 podcast. One of the neuroscientists he worked with came out and had almost the exact same 3-step process for dealing with moments like this. But mine is the ACL, which works well for us in the sports or training world. ACL is easy to remember. Acknowledge, celebrate, and leverage. Yes, I said celebrate. So the first is just the acknowledgement, like, oh, I'm in one of these moments in life. That is just empowering in itself, realizing, oh, this isn't life. This is one of those moments. Now, I challenge you to go pick up any of these books about, your famous sports star, your famous business leader, whoever, like, that's done something big, and read that book and reflect on it if you've already read it. I'm here in Portland, so let's say Phil Knight, Shoe Dog.
Shoe Dog.
And you'll find this if you go into any like team that has accomplished something phenomenal, any business like Nike that has done something phenomenal, most even any that are not, they'll tell you about the glory days. They'll tell you about, man, you should have been here, 20 years ago and it's like literally in each of these books, the glory days of this hardship. And if you went back to the glory day moment and asked those people, they'd be like, this is horrible. This sucks. Everything's going to be better when we're on the other side of this. So acknowledging and going, this is my glory day moment. This is my moment in life. This is my book. This is my story. This is what I'm going to tell my grandkids and kids about. This is what, even if I'm not telling the story, I'm going to be so proud of this when I get to the other side. Mm. So that's the celebration moment. And I'm looking at all the books on the shelf behind you. Probably half of them are that right there.
Yep.
So realizing I'm in the pit and it's horrible and I can't wait till I get done. Oh, wait. This is one of the rare opportunities in my life.
Yes.
That everybody in that, and I'm telling you some stories around it because I don't want you to just think of it as a theory. Like it is, if you go to work at some company, they're going to tell you just that around the startup days and how amazing it was. Well, it wasn't amazing. It's fucking horrible. It was
horrible. God awful.
But now it's the thing that they all, like, if you could have just been there with us, man, it's great now, but man, it was something else then. So, yes. So that's the celebration. And then now you leverage. Oh, because I care, because this is the pit for me, it means it's going to bring out the absolute best in me. My best performance, my best work. And now you're going to leverage that because you do want to spend the least amount of time possible in the pit. This methodology will do that. It will empower you to get out of that and get into the pull, which now you're using all those microcycles or macrocycles that you've used before and the skills and the resilience that you've built before to just start that long climb, pulling yourself out. And that is why it's useful to go through these other skills so that every time, the more that you have, the more strength, resilience that you've developed, the more that you're going to rebound, the more you're going to pull to the next height. So you're not going to have little tiny waves. You're going to keep growing. That's why you want to step into these. You want to step into those micro moments that are aligned. Again, that's the gut check. It's not just, hey, I want to, that's painful, I'm going to go do that. Well, is it going to add any value, any skills to what is it going to be adding? Is it aligned with your values in the development of it's super important to have that piece. But if you've got that, you'll just pull, and that peak becomes that next piece. And now we have where you started. So this is a long way around, but the plateau, which is taking some moment once you hit that peak, reflecting on what you've done, where you've been, doing some self-care, taking some time to recover, but not spending too long. It's like taking a break after the end of the season, right? A couple weeks, you're going to come back, you're going to be refreshed and ready to hit training renewed. Do you go to the Bahamas and drink Mai Tais for 9 months and you come back? You're going to be weak. You're going to be soft.
Yep.
Right? It's the same framework. It is the essence of life, that life is here to oppose resilience. If a tree grows in the biodome, it's going to grow to a certain height and just fall over. It took them a long time to figure out why. It's because the wind wasn't hammering against it, telling the roots to grow deep and strong. The weather wasn't hitting the bark, making it rigid and like this is that little weed growing up on the scraggly end of, in the pavement or up on us far rock. Like that's life. If you break your arm, well, guess what? The break is going to cause growth. Your bone's going to grow because it had something happen. But your arm in a cast immediately starts to atrophy. The process of growth, the life as a whole, not just human life, life as a whole is resilient against something. It's flexing a muscle against something. So this is how the training parallels cover nearly all aspects of life or business in the framework that I use. Because you could put most everything into these buckets and cycles, and each one's going to build on the next. And everyone has, but let's take one step back. Everyone does have a different level of baseline resilience.
Mm-hmm.
One person can walk into the gym and do 225 for 20 reps on the squat their first day. Another person, that will absolutely crush them unable to. Like, you've got different levels, but everybody can grow. Everybody can use the same process to get more resilient. So understandably, my life story, and you read it, I probably had a different baseline level of resilience than a lot of people around me, which is
probably
why they're dead, in
So
jail,
humble.
prison,
Right.
all those sorts of things of, if you read my book and hearing the stories, right? So, but I did have that process to be able to build and grow over the course of my life, because what I can do now and what I could do 20 years ago or 10 years before that is completely different. What I can handle is that. The other caveat we need to put in there is trauma, is the negative side of that, because I'm not saying that we need to experience a life like mine or to have traumatic events. Nearly of the 9 trauma types, I've had 8, right? So so what trauma is, in my opinion, we look at that same square root symbol, is that pit is far below that it's not going to make you spring back up higher. It's just pain and suffering that just isn't needed. So it's that right dose. It's that right dose. So you don't need to experience that. And I'm not saying that because you had this X horrible thing happen in life, it's good for you. But I am saying that you can become stronger or more resilient because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to clearly differentiate that for those people that have lived that.
Got it. Boy, ton of takeaways. When we talk about the glory days with Phil Knight, he was selling shoes out of his car at track meets, and he's keeping a notebook of everyone's sizes and their gaits, having that basic experience. And then like your business or like my business, I would had my car repossessed the first year. I wasn't doing well, obviously. So there's traumas, and I could articulate in my book, there's traumas that I have, and you're so humble in that, other people have theirs, to be, you know, unbiased. Other than Kyle's, I haven't seen anyone with the trauma like you. Kyle, if you don't know Kyle Maynard, his arms didn't grow past his elbows when he was born, and his legs didn't grow past his knees. He's a stumps.
Yep.
Best-selling author, ESPY award winner, fought jiu-jitsu, fought and won at wrestling in high school, not against other handicap athletes, just against other folks. He learned how to choke them out. He went 0-35 at first and ended up nationally ranked by the time he was a senior. Diver, barrier reef, Anyways, his book is No Excuses. And so one of my questions here was, and you kind of already answered it, you even said it in your book, I don't want people to have these shitty experiences. They're 8 of the 9 horrible things that could happen to you. I don't want that. Now, if it does happen to you, if one of these does happen to you, here's how you get through it, and here's how you evolve and grow from it. I don't really see people growing unless there is any kind of challenge in front of them. They have to have something. And let's say this is, metaphorically, this is your level of resilience. We don't want to go all the way out here on the next step. You want to just systematically, progressively overload a little bit. But sometimes people get hit by a car. Sometimes people's parents die, right? And there's a drug addiction, and you got, your best friend dying. And I'm reading this shit. I'm like, I was telling my wife, every section of this book, you think it's going to get better. It really doesn't. but he keeps coming back. He keeps coming back. And if you have that ability, like the second time you had the rattlesnake, you probably weren't as fearful as the first time. You're still afraid, but not quite as much because confidence comes from those reps. When you're dealing with kids or even sometimes adults, well, what I'm finding is they don't want any of the reps. They want to be self-medicated with their phone or the TV. And next thing you know, there's no trauma. There's no wind against the tree, like you said. So then there's no growth. So now they're in this slow death, the slow, debilitating, self-inflicted
it's
disease.
just a slow decline. Instead of the square root,
right?
Because you don't have the resilience, it's the atrophy, and it's just like this until it does hit you, and then it destroys you.
You're done because you have no ability to come back from it. Now, no one's that intelligent and wise at a young age, and you talk about, hey, I have my own fuck-ups. You talked about drinking a lot in college, and then living this life of who people think or who you think you should be versus who you are. And this comes into the dragon component, this reinvention. Do you periodically, monthly, quarterly, annually, just lock yourself in a room or in the desert somewhere and just sit there quietly and be like, hey, where am I going? What's going on? Do I need to keep going in this direction? Do I need to reinvent? Do I need to pivot? What are some processes that you use to make sure that you're still aligned with your North Star and it's time to either reinvent yourself or keep going? How do you do that reflectively?
Yeah. So this is something like if I have a business or I'm coaching a business owner or executive, it's a process that is semi-annual with a larger component annually, where you're reflecting on those value statements and then aligning and creating goals with that help you realize that, and then a process of now laying those goals out so they're specific, measurable, all your SMART goals.
Right.
In life in general, it's a little bit more intermittent for me. I know some people still do that once a year, but life isn't exactly cyclical as well.
Sure.
Right. And so I've definitely had some events come my way of recently that have forced me on that process. And it can be things that could be horrible things, but you can figure out how it's an opportunity. So when we talk about, if we get back to the rattlesnake and the fear component, when you have fear overpower you, it's like these blinders on you. It becomes this tunnel vision, and you can't see a way out of your scenario. and it shuts you down from the creative opportunities. And so being able to try to take a step back, let me take a step back for a moment. So oftentimes we're in life and we're in a path and we're moving down that path. And so we're talking about reevaluation of where we're at. Is that aligned? Is there a direction change that needs to be made? But the fear component comes in. It's just like holding that rattlesnake, locking you up. But it's this blinders, these tunnel vision of being able to look and miss the scope of everything that's around you and the potential. And what the fear does is locks you into these patterns of what happens if I lose my job? What happens if my business goes under? What happens if, my partner leaves me? Or it's all these, and you're just like, your head's whirling, and it's all these, how do I make sure I don't get fired? How do I make sure, like, it just locks you up from being able to see the potential around you. So I've had, pretty interesting experience this last year for a number of reasons that we don't need to get into, but there was a hostile takeover of my company that I built over 10 years, and I lost all my patents and IP. And there's a couple interesting lessons from the course of that. So it was a internationally recognized brand that was a pinnacle of like perfection in its field just really well recognized, produced the absolute best biomechanically sound equipment in the market, worked with 90% of all the professional sports teams in North America, 900 colleges. My products were in the White House, every branch of the military. Pretty recognized stuff. And that was all stripped away from me. And a lot of people are like, man, that must be horrible. And I'm like, well, I spent a day on that. It's always good to reflect. But at the same time, there's two things I want to pass along from that experience. It's really easy to blame others or the circumstances, and I could pick a million things to do that, but it doesn't allow you any opportunity to grow.
Amen. Yep.
So you have the choice here, the choice to blame or the choice to take ownership. Because there's always some way that you've played a role in whatever interactions or things that have happened in your life. And if you take ownership for the fact of, I failed, or in this case, I failed with this. What was it? Why was it? Where was it? I can still take some lessons from that and grow from that. I can still become better by my active choice to take ownership when I could displace that as the natural thing and tell you a story of how I was wronged or this or that. The other side of that is realizing how freeing it can be at the same time. And this is actually an exercise I like to have people do when they're struggling with some of those moments around, hey, what if the economy's crushing my business? What happens if it fails? Like, what would I do? Oh my God. And it's just like this whirlwind. Now I'm going to lose my house and my wife's going to leave me. And, it's just like runs this rampant. And it's like, no, let's take a step back. And I want you to imagine that event has happened. Put your place in that realm. You've lost everything. That's your fear. You've lost everything. Now, what would you do? Where would you go if you had to start from scratch? Because you've been through so many of these cycles. You have so much skills and talent and knowledge and all these things that nobody can take from you. It's there. What would you do? And map that whole thing. What's the next step? Man, what do you want to get involved with? How would you? And you just walk through this whole process. Because what we've done is remove the fear blinders to allow you to see the full opportunities and present in life. And Jim, you went through this experience. I know this. That's why you're podcasting with me today, right? And
True.
So you imagine, like, where would I go? Would I go from Wall Street to being a podcaster? What do I really want to do?
Yes.
And now you roll it all the way back to, oh, I'm here. I've got this job, or I've got this company. I've got like, I now have all these tangible assets. I still have all these things on top of that full opportunity in front of me. Oh my God. And that's how you remove those fear blinders and open up the opportunity for action. And that could be taking your business on a tangent, not a tangent, but like, redirecting that scope. It could be a major pivotal moment because, hey, the technology and the market's changing. This, like all these things. And so for me, a day after losing all of that, I was excited. I couldn't wait to start that next chapter because I've gone through a number of these processes before, and it's like, oh, wow, that's also freeing. I don't have to worry about making $250,000 in payroll this month and this and that. And, man, I've been held back because of my investors didn't want me to talk about peptides. They didn't want me to do this online. Like I had control over like all these other, oh my God, the windows are open for me to do some really fun stuff that I've been thinking about or involved with for the last 20 years, but I haven't been able to do.
Bad.
It's freeing.
It is. It is.
It's freeing. You've been through this.
I've been through the divorce and losing your job all within 60 days. And like, where do I go? So I set myself up on this different trajectory financially with my MBA and then still staying in the financial world. But then I get hit with not another crisis or trauma, but a reminder that when I was younger, I wanted to be more athletic and in shape. And my dad and my family was not like that. And my son comes to me and says, I want to be an athlete. And all I'm doing is teaching him how to be fat and lazy and drink and eat bad food. And I'm like, this is not it. This is not it. This is not where I want to be. I want to. So luckily, JP Morgan fired me and my team in 2012, in the middle of the time when I'm reinventing myself athletically, taking certifications, learning the habits of being healthier, eating better, running, lifting, all that. And then you open a business, and then you keep doing more and more reflection, get smarter, go to other conferences, learn more things from books and podcasts, and like put together your philosophy. And it's like, all right, I'm 50 now. I got another 10 years of impact, major impact. What's the last run I want to make here on the legacy and impact? And you're right, because when you have nothing else left, you're like, okay, I can go in any direction.
Any direction. It's free.
In any country.
Like, for you. It's like, oh, hey, I've got this great experience. I know finances. I'm running business. I'm a good communicator. I can like all this that I've been building over the course of my life. Nobody can take that. What do I do with that?
What do I do with that?
Where do I go with it?
Right. And then if someone's just not in that spot, but they come into the gym and they're so afraid at first, and a year later, they're confident that whatever we throw on the board or whatever we tell them to do, they can handle. Well, now they also have the confidence that I can have that conversation with my spouse or my kid or my coworker. I've had challenges before with the unknown, and I'm okay. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to be 100% abandoned. I'm going to be okay. So then you take that step forward, that leap of faith that you see in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade when he's taking that step over that bridge towards that chalice, right? It's this leap of faith. I'm going to be okay. And once you do a little small mini trauma, you know you're going to be okay with another small mini challenge. And a medium trauma, the same deal. And likewise with the large ones. And that's what you keep saying. Keep progressing yourself because you're only here one fucking time, right? This is it. You don't get, there's none of that reincarnation coming back as, me come back as Chris Duffin or a tree. This is it. And so I tell people, got to go now. Got to go. What is the obstacle that shows up in your life that you're like, whether I'm building businesses or building myself or building my family, you're like, you know what? This one kind of bites me once in a while.
My obstacle is my interest and skill set being diverse. So instead of...
Jack of all trades then?
Yes.
Because you could be great at a lot of things. You're great in the automotive industry. Fuck, you're great at paintball, right?
Yep.
You're great at squatting and deadlifting and benching. You know what you're really great at, which in my mind a little suicidal, cutting 39 pounds of weight off you in 24 hours like a lunatic to make a weight class to hit a record, right? Now, I see the plaque on the wall, but you almost died.
Yeah, yep.
When you grow up, this is the question I was debating about asking, but I want to know because I do the same thing. And again, humbly, it's not at your level. when you grow up with chaos and trauma and pain so much and it's pervasive, do you subconsciously recreate that because that's the environment that you're used to?
I think so. I believe that I've got to have a certain level of chaos in my life to engage my excitement. And also, this is one of my learning lessons through my experiences of taking ownership, is realizing, because of some of the trauma bonding in my childhood, that I need to be aware of the narcissistic type personalities that I attract and could potentially take advantage of situations. And that's my doing by bringing those people into my life at times in business. And so, yeah, I think a lot of that is related to, the childhood that I had. And that's something that awareness is certainly helping me with.
I gotcha. My wife pointed it out to me. She goes, Jim, you're always in this state of aggression and flux. I go, I thought about that. And I put myself through college with my own painting business. And then out of that, I took a job as a broker and 100% commission, zero salary, right? And then from there, I'm a trader at a hedge fund. But then I put myself through MBA school, and then I'm starting my own business. And then finally, when I launched my first book last fall, I had a second book going on the same time 2 weeks later. And then the book's done, and it's 2025, and I'm growing this online piece. Jen's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm going to swim with these Navy SEALs across the Hudson River and do a bunch of stuff for charity. And she's like, what? You just finished this one thing, and now you're like, as an athlete, I was a strength athlete in my 40s, so 320 pounds, and not your numbers, right? But for me, the 600 deadlift and squat, right? It was great for me, not for you. Like, big, right? Not a swimmer, not. And they're like,
Yeah.
so now I'm lighter. I'm 250, and I still need to be lighter, but I'm a swim. She's like, you're gonna go from there to there. Like, why are you doing that? I said, well, there's number of reasons, but one is because I want to show people that my philosophies hold true across different domains. But she says, can't you just take a breath and not be fucking yourself? I'm like, I don't know.
So that's the lesson for you is, spending a little bit of time at that plateau, the self-reflection, the self-care, not too long, but make sure you're spending that time.
That's why I asked you about that. Because I was looking for like a process there. With this next iteration, the next Chris Duffin iteration, it's already going on with the Lift Lab app. I looked into it, and I read everything was online. I looked at the app itself. I see the mechanics. And when I'm coaching people, there's a number of things I just hang my hat on. One is the basic physics of moving, and the force velocity and force equals mass times acceleration. But it's also efficiency, and then there's intensity, and then there's that after action report, the feedback loop on what's going not suboptimally, so I can make adjustments. So let's just get right into the Lift Lab app, because this is exciting. I see it for uses in gyms. I see it for uses at home. I see it for travel teams, college teams. There's a lot of uses. Talk about what it is and broadly, and then we'll get into it more granularly.
Yeah, so the Lift Lab app is, bar none, there really is no product of its scope or caliber on the market. It is 15 years, and we talk about everything being stripped away. Well, the knowledge and the tools around the sports science side and all those algorithms meeting technology today in being able to do some really incredible things. So all of those sports science methodologies around being able to manage load, like I tried to do that through my products, like getting joints in better position, but really it comes down to having the right loading. So knowing where a person is at today and being able to prescribe the right set of load along the arc of a greater plan. And so the Lift Lab app is the closest thing you can have to a high level, very high level coach being in the room with you, and it's just your phone. You pull it out, and it literally watches you train, right? You set it up, you point it at you. And what it's able to do, so it's doing some really intense calculations. It's looking at the plate and capturing the size, how far away it is, and it's measuring how fast it's moving. What that does, it's actually mapping, and it creates this profile for you. And we did this way back 10 years ago when I was setting all-time world records. We'd be able to, with a, several $1,000 tool that we also spent a year figuring out the mapping methodologies, because nobody was doing this. They were just using velocity for moving faster, not actually as a tap-in to our physiological and neurological preparedness for the day. So we could take some of my warm-up weights and be like, hey, I can squat 875 pounds today. So we loaded 872 pounds on the bar for a world record attempt. And, I probably had an extra 2 pounds left in me. Like it was just incredible of what it could do, because with those two combined. So now we've got all that mapped into this software, and then this AI pose estimation. And all these years of being able to refine movement patterns and give interventions based on that, see what's going on. So it's creating this tailored one-of-one programming. You input some variables up front, your training history, a few other things. So it's got a baseline program, how many days a week you want to train, how often you feel recovered, and it builds a program. But every workout you go in, you start training. It says, hey, it looks like you got a little more. Put 10 pounds on the bar. Put 5 pounds on the bar. Drop the load because you're slowing down. It tells you, and you'll be like, man, those weights are just like perfect. And then it starts tailoring. Okay, he's not quite recovering, or she's not quite recovering. It starts building this program that is just perfect for actually how you're adapting in life. So it's custom tailoring. And the refinement level of what it can do is just incredible, because this is often what a highly skilled coach is doing if they're watching you. And we're talking like Olympic caliber, that they can identify, today we're going to back off. They don't really know but it's actually that bar speed is really what they're capturing, because that's the indicator of that neurological component. And yeah, so it's just this incredible match of leading edge sports science. So sports science that you couldn't do before. So you're going to see more pieces coming out around it, because we're going to actually do some really in-depth analysis, like on your, let's say, K values. This would be the differential, like you're putting in subjective measures. Hey, this load is always feeling, and you're doing this rating. Let's say it's an 8 of 10. 8 of 10. Well, one day it's a 9 of 10 or a 10 of 10. Well, that's an indicator, right? There is also your change of rate of acceleration. So not just the acceleration, but it's the change in rate of acceleration. And it's actually titled a jerk metric. So not like a clean and jerk,
Yep.
but it's from physics, it's called the jerk metric. And that is actually your first leading indicator into, we've got a breakdown where either a prime mover or a stabilizer is starting to fatigue out, and now we're imbalancing somewhere else. Well, what happens there? Well, then we start releasing chemicals, into the stream. We've got, then we get some protective around the nerve, and next thing you know, we've got a strain or maybe a tear or something like that. But that might even happen like weeks later, right? Because now we've got this over fatigued muscle. It's tightened up. Maybe it's the next training session, so on. We can actually see that real time with the jerk metric in your movement that you cannot see with a visual eye when we have a change to the jerk metric beyond a certain component. And that is just absolutely fascinating, because it's actually telling us what's going on in the muscle based on that, and leading off and reducing injury potentiation at the earliest possible intervention.
Man. So like coaches are required or asked to do that, but it's all with my own brain if I'm looking right at you. And like yesterday, I'm lifting, and I knew early on in the warm up sets the weight felt heavier than it should have. So then the question is why? And I knew that the last two prior nights I was sleep deprived, and I'm like, all right, nervous system a little weaker, muscles are still the same, but the assessment is you should probably not push as hard when you're kind of wrecked. What you're saying is that the technology kind of, well, not kind of, it exactly assesses that speed in those warm-ups. Says, hey, you know what, you're fatigued today, or that weight is flying today. It might be a day to push a little bit more. And what I'm telling these athletes when they're doing their accessories or whatever else is that when you leave too many reps in the tank, that you're not getting enough stimulus to cause adaptation. You got to push those reps so you get the adaptation. Well, it's going to say, hey, man, you got a little bit more. Maybe instead of doing 8 by 10, you're doing, or 4 by 10, maybe you're doing 4 by 15, or you just add some more weight because we're trying to optimize the stimulus to cause adaptation. On the flip side, you're also decreasing the stimulus to prevent injuries when you're not ready for it.
Are spot on. So people always think about auto-regulation as when to pull back, but it's also the secret to all the micro opportunities to add load and adaptation. That's one of the reasons that I was so successful in my training is I started thinking about this in 2010. I might have been before then, and that's when I started playing with the velocity technique and then developing this mapping process. Because again, it was just velocity training was just speed training then. And I'm like, no, I'm going to use it on these heavy components and see the opportunity of when I've got another set in the training, when I've got another 5 pounds, when I've got and you add those up over let's say a 12-week cycle, it's incredible what you can accomplish. And yeah, there's days it's going to pull you back as well. But there's so many other factors that feed into your life, whether I got a good sleep or the kid was up late, sick, and one of my partners in the business, we're having a disagreement. Like all these other factors are playing into role. And you're a 600-pound squatter. You're not a 600-pound squatter. You might be a 607 squatter. You might be a 551 squatter. It could be a 540 squat. Like it varies in the flux.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was that day at that moment where you were. So
Yes.
where are you at that moment today, right? Where should we be training today? And it's that flux, and we know that. And you will tailor that load because it's watching you, and it's going to know exactly where that load should be today based on where what level of adaptation we're trying to get.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other component. May not always be maximizing it, right? Based on what is the goals and objectives over a cycle. Like, hey, this might be a loading strategy where we're accumulating and, we don't want to push it to that level because in 2 days, we've got a planned harder load adaptation. There's a recovery element that we're trying to get from this. Like maybe this is a strength, maybe this is a hyper, like we're building different qualities in every workout, right? So being able to tailor that for what it should be is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, and so you'll see it. It'll track. It'll show you velocity loss. It'll show you a bunch of metrics that you don't necessarily need to know. The most important one is, what do I put on the bar next? How many times do I lift it?
That's it.
Like,
Whittles it down to that.
At the end of the day. But what we're doing from the backside of, I'd call it next generation training science.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing things that no one else is doing, and then tying that with technology that is now becoming rapidly available. These supercomputers in our hands with vision systems. Like we've spent years developing the IP on the tech side, and 15 years of development of the algorithms and training methodology approaches with a team that I had.
What's really awesome about that is that if I'm just a lifter, like once I have trust with a colleague or a coach, like I was talking to 𝗬𝗍𝗃𝗀, then I was on with 𝗦cie𝗰𝗶𝗹, both great on hormones and peptides, right? When they start giving me more of the nerd stuff, I'm like, I don't need to hear anymore. All right, I don't need to hear anymore. Shut up. Just tell me what to do now. So if you're an athlete and you're like, hey, don't. For me, I love the geek nerd stuff on the why. But a lot of people call up, if once they trust you, they're like, hey, just tell me what to do. So when you get down here, where are my sets and reps, and it tells you what to do next, the thinking has to go away. I can put that brain power somewhere else, or just at least focus on my next set. But if I have to do all the thinking also, it's an additional stressor. I take that out of the equation. I trust Chris and his product. I don't need to think anymore. Just tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it. And here's my feedback, and then we're going to adjust. And that's very also freeing for a lot of athletes because they don't want to know the why. They don't need to.
I don't anymore. I'm so busy. I have so much going on. I don't want to think about my training. I don't have time to think about my training. And if I do, I'm not getting it. So I'm like, I've got
Takes it all away.
an hour during my lunch break where I go to the gym and I hit it. And it's like, I pull out, what am I doing? Oh, by the way, here's my last workout. I was doing, and you can see the bar path down here. And this is, I'm actually just doing a machine, but it's still actually, and it tailored the load just perfectly for me with that. So it's not capturing the movement on that one. Now you can see the end. So we've got this. And then if we look at, we can pull the metrics on that. So you can see here is,
there it is.
There we go.
Yep.
So we got weight, velocity, average velocity, the drop-off point, all that's in there. And then, yeah, it's pretty wild.
I had a couple questions about it. On a max effort day, does it tell you what to hit, or you just try to max out, or does it kind of give you input there? And then second question, what about like strengthless, speedless, like the Olympic lifts, snatch, clean, and jerk? Same deal there? Or
yeah, I mean it'll manage your bicep curls if you want. So
okay.
Anything that's got a plate on it, we're capturing. That's just why it's capturing the machine. I was even doing a hammer strength row this week. I'm like, let me put that on there, and it dialed it in just perfect for me. Obviously, it's not looking at technique on that, and we're not coaching Olympic lifting or powerlifting per se. So, like, we're not going to be providing Olympic lifting, skill set coaching.
Sure.
Right. We're looking at general joint angles on the base movements, and hey, does it look like we've got a weak adductor on the left side? We're going to start looking at how do we manage training based on developing the strengths that we're also, or weaknesses that we see that we need to adapt in there at the same time. Right.
Right.
So it could be just a coaching technique of like, hey, your head position is this, let's fix that. But we're also on the back end looking and refining the training based on the needs from the movement patterns. Now, max effort, because this isn't a powerlifting, prep program. This is you enter whether you want, what level of bias you want, strength, endurance, or hypertrophy, right? And we've refined the program to meet that. So you could have a really high strength program, but it will show you where your projected max is every day. You can see actually where you're at. So we don't have you maxing out, but we can tell you what your max is at any given point in time.
Okay. Let's say I bring in like a squad of 12 volleyball girls, and we're doing basic trap bar work. And so we would set up their phones in front of their trap bars, and each time the girl goes, map out their movements, map out their speed, and I might have an idea that, hey, we want to be RPE 7 or 70% roughly. That's going to help me say, hey, this is a better number. It shouldn't be this weight. Maybe it should be a little higher, or it should be a little lower. Each girl has her own thing, so it's tailored to them. We set it all up, set the bars up, have the weights up, then we're off and running. Is that a good application there?
Yeah, I mean it's not really meant for the group coaching, because I mean you can go, if everybody opens a program and they've got some form of, like, you can change the exercise to that, but it's an individualized program.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? So it's going to start creating a different program for each of the 12 girls over time.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
But with the RPE, so we do have a subjective indicators, which we capture that too, like, hey, what was your sleep like? What was your food like? So on. And after each exercise, you're entering an RPE, but we're actually telling you based on the velocity, we're going, we think this looks like a 7.5 based on the velocity. And then if you think it's something else, it'll change that. But it'll actually give you a projected RPE as well.
What about adding like accommodating resistance? Does it allow for that as well?
We don't have that segregated out, so you would just add however you want to track that over time. So you could add that as the peak or the base on the accommodating, and just you would add that as a consistent metric as you do that. Now we do have, you can input, I'm choosing, so you can track that, benching with chains or benching with bands, right?
Gotcha.
but we're not capturing the beginning and end components of that versus you could do the average load, which would probably be the best.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, Target market, you said individuals, right?
Yes, so it is D2C, so it's custom tailored to be one of one. We do hope at some point to have, because this does allow, in my opinion, the opportunity for a coach to be able to highly scale their business if we can have that as a product where we can create the reporting tools for the coach so that you could go, hey, you know what, I'm going to meet with my clients every other week or once a month, and boom, we deliver you. Here's the key videos that you want to watch that are the great ones, the ones for opportunities. Here's the metrics, and we package that up so you don't have to watch every single workout. You know that you've got the things that you need to be aware of, and all packaged up in the key metrics. And now you're sitting down with your client. You've got some key videos to watch. You prep with that, and you provide the feedback, the advice, the other pieces as a coach. That's going to make your job as a coach be able to manage so many more clients if you trust the technology that's there as well, and still add your value, and then price that however, whatever your pricing is for that, for a monthly option. So whatever you feel that is. We don't have that yet. The other side of that is the affiliate relationship, which is more of a B2B2C. So going into the healthcare market with anybody that is a provider that needs to reference somebody to a coach, and maybe they can't afford, or you just don't have in your network a great quality coach going, hey, here's this app that you could actually use. Let's say it's, people using like GLP agonists. Every one of those you're supposed to take that with strength training. Well, you need to be able to prescribe the strength training as your healthcare provider that's doing that. So I believe that that's going to be a good market segment for us as the B2B2C. And then that'd be the same with the coaching and being able to scale coaching so that you can be there with your client on the days that you're training or meet with them separately, but also they've got this tool and you're able to actually manage and see all the outlying stuff that you need to see and create some reporting. We haven't developed that component of it yet, but that will be a future component.
Another iteration. That's outstanding.
But man, for a coach or a gym owner, you could so scale your business with the amount of clients that you could handle and really sift out all the give you data that you wouldn't have access to, but then also sift out all the stuff that you don't have to review either.
Bang. It just streamlines things, makes things more efficient. Then you're off and running. Oh, all right. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I have these last few rapid fire questions. Just what do you listen to when you're training?
I love Vivaldi. I have mixed to a little bit more of an eclectic. I don't know what you would call it, but yeah. Hold on, let me pull this up. I've got a Spotify list. This is my grand goals. What I listen to. So we've got Summer Overture by Glimpse Mansell. Drowning, Five Finger Death Punch, Wrong Side to Heaven. I did my squat right when Breathe Me by Sia hit. Light by Ely Goulding. Then it goes to Five Finger Death Punch, Gone Away. Then some Blackmail, Glitch Mob, Johnny Cash.
It's all over.
So, yeah, a lot of like electronic, cerebral music.
Sure.
And then for me, yeah, lifting heavy is a very cerebral component, and just getting, thrash metal doesn't really help me versus, I don't know, there's just certain words and timing that I'll just set my cues to.
Sure. If I was maxing out a lift, I would usually listen to the New Zealand All Blacks performing the haka before the rugby match. I don't know if you know who they are.
No.
So it's a rugby match, and so before each match,
oh, yes, I do know. Yes.
they're doing this chant, right? They're calling up these spirits from Earth to fill their bodies and help them perform as warriors. So they're just chanting, and I'm like, I only listen to that if I'm going to max out something, and because it's, like you said, very cerebral. For you and your wife, bucket list adventure you haven't done yet, but you're like, I would like to do this thing or go to this place.
Chile. We want to go to Chile.
Okay. Favorite sports movie?
Hmm. I not a movie, but I did really enjoy the Michael Jordan.
Documentary, Last
Yeah,
Dance.
I think that really opened the eyes to a lot of people that live on the extremes are not normal.
Right. Uh,
You're not balanced,
no. Alex,
and
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, that's just I don't think people understand. Like, hey, do you want your kids to be a superstar? Well, not really. Like,
That's painful.
because it's not all good.
Mm-mm.
Like,
𝗬𝗪𝗀𝘀𝘁 talks about when he talks to other gym owners or executives that are really great, that he knows how broken they must be also. You know.
yes, exactly.
Favorite sport to
I don't
watch?
need my kids broken like I am.
Right.
I
Right.
need the right level of that.
The right
The
level
right
of broken.
dose.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. You have a favorite sport to watch?
Here's the funny thing, and this is always really entertaining with my team when I was working with all the sports teams. I love movement.
Mm. Yeah.
I really don't watch sports.
Okay.
So, like,
Okay.
so I'm not like, I don't have sports stars. I'm like, I'll go in and be working with famous lifters. I have no idea who they are, but I'm like, your squat's great. It's like, shit, here I'm working with you. And people will
Right.
laugh at me because they're like, don't you know who that's that? And I'm like, I don't know.
No. Right.
I'm here to,
Not
which I
relevant.
think made me a little better maybe because I just didn't have this like aura or, component to it, but it's probably a little odd that I'm rather indifferent. I mean, I'll go to a, basketball game. We've got, and enjoy my time there, but I'm not into watching sports, honestly.
Gotcha. So probably not a favorite athlete then either.
Nope.
Okay. You got a favorite book or two?
That's always changing based on the moment of what the need is,
Yep.
right?
Got it.
That's just so tough to answer
Sure.
because it is my favorite is what I'm trying to progress with at that time. And I can't say that there's ever going to be a fixed,
One book that does it all.
yeah,
There's 200 behind me that all on being better in something, but we have another 11 or 900 in the house. And sometimes what I like to read is a Western because it's just fun and I'm relaxing, But I'm not trying to get better in that moment. Maybe I'm trying to calm down and sleep. So I'll read a Western,
Yep.
So that's important to me then.
that's something I need to make more time for is reading books that are just enjoyable to read.
The
I
mind
did a lot
camp.
of that when I was younger.
Right.
It's just the time-consuming aspect of it, but it's like, man, I pretty much focus on development type books
Sure.
and a lot of stuff that I may be working with my clients on because I work with a lot of clients that are professionals in their careers, like I said, either executives, business owners, or just people working through challenging moments in life. And so just trying to stay on top of additional resources is really key.
Yep.
But my favorite book is it's something at each time that I'm really engaged in, but I don't really want to list it because it's not really telling of me as a whole if I list a certain title right now.
Yep. This next two questions, they could be fictional or nonfiction. Favorite hero and supervillain. Could be real life people, could be in a story.
Man, I'm terrible with these kind of questions. I am. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
You say no
Favorite
answer.
hero or supervillain?
Nothing wrong with being a hero in your own story.
Yeah, that's so
Because you're probably the villain at some point also.
yeah. I guess I'm not into like those type of movies or books that have those stand out. So I'm trying to think through
Instances.
other areas, and it's interesting because when you're reading real life, history, so many heroes have so many dark qualities as well, and
Yep.
so
Right. They do.
when you start thinking about like who's my favorite or when I would want to stand out and be reflective, you also see those other qualities in there as well. And I guess that's the nature
People.
of human beings, right?
Yeah. That's okay.
Which is why I wouldn't, I certainly wouldn't call myself a hero by any means either. I know that I am for like my sisters and my family, and I'm really proud of that. That is something that, at the end of the day, in everything that I've been through in my life, and even some of the hardships that I've been through just this last year in managing the transition and the uncertainty around that, being able to be there with my family is incredible. And so, didn't answer your question directly, but
Well, it's one of the reasons I led with the intro. 'Cause I chose all those words specifically when I said provider and protector at a young age. It's more common and standard. Hey, well, you're the father, but you weren't the father of those girls. You
no,
know,
I
so
was, but I was.
but you were, right?
Yeah.
So that's why, that was awesome. Of all the lifts, do you have a favorite?
Yes. When I was squatting, it was squatting. When I was deadlifting, it was deadlifting. And when I started lifting, it was the bench until my elbows went out and I wasn't the best at that anymore.
Sure, sure.
And then I also love all my kind of circus lifts that I've done through the years, from like one arm barbell windmills, double bottoms up, like whatever it is at the time. I just get super into
What's happening?
certain things at certain times. Like that's my severe ADHD, I guess.
I don't know. It sounds like you're very, very present in that moment, which is the opposite.
Yes, I am.
Right. For me, it's back squat 'cause it's always scared me the most, and that's always why it was my favorite. But really, I guess fundamentally, it would be an atlas or a natural stone, because before there's bars, you had to pick up rocks to be strong, and I thought that was cool. You have a quote or no?
No.
All right. Where can
Yeah.
people get a hold of you? Where can they find you? Where can we?
ChrisDuffin.com.
ChrisDuffin.com. And then there's the Lift
Or
Lab.
across all the social medias. Yeah. I haven't been all too active, but I try to get to, a number of my messages and stuff on those. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you can find me on all those platforms. Yeah.
And the app, the Lift Lab app, is out there. It's off and running. You can get it today.
Yep. You can find that on the App Store, or again, ChrisDuffin.com. I've got everything on my social media. Everything's linked. If you click on my profile, you'll find links to everything. So,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Man, thanks for a lot today, Chris. A lot of lessons, a lot of personal questions I needed for myself answered, a lot of insights, directions for my athletes, my coaches. Man, it was a true gift, and we're better for it. So thank you. Also, thank you for 𝗀𝗍𝗄, our sponsor, and be on the lookout for our series that's coming up. Our next webinar is on April 2nd, and the Athlete Builder Summit, June 7th. It'll be in person. One of the people we mentioned, Anthony Castor, he'll be presenting there as well. So, Chris, man, thanks for being on the show today. It was a gift, man. Loved having you on.
It was fun.